Let's greet them. Starting us off, former Houston City Council member Sue Lovell. Next up, Bob Price, associate editor of Breitbart, Texas. In the 3 spot, longtime Super Neighborhood leader Tamara Bell. Batting cleanup, Marcus Davis, restaurateur and host of Fish, Grits, and Politics. And closing us out on the hot corner, Republican strategist Jessica Colon. Let's begin. The laws governing the Lone Star State are changing, and in some cases, those changes are dramatic and life-altering. As of September 1st, Texas is home to what is likely the most restrictive standard for obtaining a legal abortion in the entire nation. Medical experts say the Texas Heartbeat Act will prohibit the procedure for most women beyond their 6th week of pregnancy and employs what legal authorities have called a novel approach to enforcement. The new law empowers any citizen to sue anyone they suspect of aiding or enabling an abortion deemed to be illegal under the new stricter guidelines established by the Republican-controlled legislature. Panel, the law will be fiercely challenged in court, with at least one legal scholar contending the Texas statute and Roe versus Wade simply cannot coexist. Bob Price, this is a heavy move by Governor Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick. Do you think it will play with the Texas public?
Well, I think it was a heavy move by the Texas House of Representatives and the Texas legislature that was signed by the governor. It's a great move for protecting life, which is the ultimate responsibility of the government. The Declaration of Independence guarantees life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It starts with life. That's the most important thing. This bill is certainly going to be challenged in the courts, and it'll move up the chain, and it'll go up against Roe v. Wade possibly. And many believe that Roe v. Wade was improperly decided by the Supreme Court and should have been overturned, that this should have been a states' rights issue to start with. So I think that's where it'll end up.
Sue Lovell, I was surprised that there wasn't more pushback from the public on this. Protests for those who support choice, marches in Austin. What's your take?
I was too, but I think there was just so much going on with COVID and everything else that, you know, I have, my children are all adopted, and I am so glad those mothers chose to have my children. But I still believe this is about a woman's right to choose. It is to be decision between her decision and her doctor. I believe this is moving forward because now with a different Supreme Court, of course, everybody's wanting to get this to the Supreme Court and hoping that it will be overturned. So I think it's been sent on its journey, and we'll watch and see what happens.
All right, Marcus Davis, there is no issue more emotional, more complex, more controversial. How do you see this?
Well, let me start by saying what makes this, and I'm not saying it's not emotional and complex, but what makes it so emotional and so complex is that it is a partisan, hot-button issue, and it has been for the last 50 years. America has to look in the mirror and say, what the hell are we doing? We're having the same argument for the last 50 years, and we elect people and unelect people based on this single question, this single answer. We put people on the Supreme Court based solely on whether or not they want to tear down Roe versus Wade or not, and it is just so archaic, and that's why America is no longer the leader of the free world, because we're stuck in the dark ages. With that being said, I clearly believe that Texas has a problem in the pants and skirt of women versus being in the business of governing the state of Texas. I hear what Bob is saying about it's the government's ultimate responsibility to protect life. How ironic is it that we will not make children wear masks to preserve life, but we'll make the mother go in to have an abortion? This city, this state is just so backwards, it's just ridiculous.
Jessica Colon, you've been in the middle of this fight in Austin, and you've been campaigning for years on this issue. Why did it happen this session?
You know, it happened this session, and Texas is a strong pro-life state, and Texas leads on life for the nation. And the culture of America has turned toward life, and you're seeing that in the last generation. We have one of the most pro-life generations in the millennial generation that we've ever had, because they grew up with sonograms. They saw their own selves in their mother's womb and saw pictures of that. And in many baby albums, that's the very first picture that they have, that adults have of their journey in life, is their mother's sonogram picture. That's a very real thing that has been happening, and the public has moved toward life. And it's common sense that if you hear a heartbeat, that life should be saved. It's the first thing that a paramedic does, is check your pulse, check for life, check your heartbeat. This is common practice in anyone that has gone in to take a sonogram at their very first appointment with the doctor. You listen for that heartbeat, and they call it a heartbeat. And this is something that many other states have done. Texas has joined them and is leading with this issue. And this is a bill that's going to go the distance in the courts.
All right, Tamara Bell, during your life, you have had to counsel countless people. This is an emotional issue. This is one that you probably have thought about and probably have mixed feelings about. What are your thoughts?
First off, I do believe that, first and foremost, this is a woman's choice. This is her body. I listen at the House and the Senate talk about how they care so much, snatching babies from their mamas at the borders. And then they watching people, now it happens so much, almost numb to it. The child abuse, things we couldn't fathom that a parent would do to their kid. And now you're going to say, well, you got to have the kid, you got to keep the kid. Even if you don't want it, you got to have it. You got to think about this and where you're headed. I think most of this is not about the process of an abortion. It's about the color of the babies that's being aborted. And that is why they're doing this. Because believe you me, in the State House of Representatives in Texas, in the Senate and in the House, ain't no millennials, but a few. That's not who's making this choice. The people who are making this choice are the people who are not going to raise the children. So I really think that with all we got going on in Texas, I mean it, the covering of one's ass, by not even talking about the grid and the freeze and ERCOT and dealing with these personal choices that these people make. I wish we would take more of our time and do it about the business of Texas.
Okay, hold that thought. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion of the restrictive new Texas abortion laws and efforts to expand them, the pharmaceutical drugs which end a pregnancy, and later, the freedom to pack a pistol in public without a permit has been extended to millions of Texans. Will it increase safety or undermine it?
Limit, which was the original limit under the Clinton administration that the House approved in 2013 with HB 2. So it acknowledged that 7-week limit as opposed to this 10-week limit that the Obama administration brought it up to. These are very dangerous drugs. The abortion industry likes to say that these drugs are as safe as Tylenol, and it couldn't be further from the truth. This is RU486. The FDA is not enforcing the in-person doctor visit of the woman or the girl to confirm she's pregnant, to confirm she's not ectopic. There's a 30% higher maternal mortality rate with these drugs on an ectopic pregnancy. Very frightening, very scary business, risky business. And these are not drugs that girls should be taking and making the dorm room the new abortion clinic. And that's what that has the potential to be happening. So right now, because the FDA is not enforcing the in-person doctor's visits, these drugs are can be mailed directly to the patients. And Texas said, no, we're not doing mail-order abortions here in Texas. We're going to keep the doctor visit in place, which has been in place since the inception, since the approval of these drugs in 2000.
All right, Sue Lovell, these pharmaceutical abortions now comprise more than half of the abortions in the state of Texas. Is this the wrong move for our state to take?
Let's be clear about something. Simply because you make it illegal doesn't mean it's going to stop happening. So women that are going to want abortions, however chemical or whatever way, they're going to find a way to make that happen. Just because it's illegal doesn't mean there will not be abortions. They'll just go back to backroom abortions, or it's like opiates are illegal, but man, we got a huge opiate addiction and people dying. And so stopping pills from being manufactured, that's not going to happen. I mean, women are going to find abortions and have abortions if they want to. You can make it as illegal as you want. But how about the fact if you're going to make them have those children, put in place where the father, the other part of this child's life has to be responsible for that child?
Gotta leave it there, Sue. Gotta leave it there, Sue. Up next, a call for police reform in Texas. New rules aimed at better law enforcement are now in force. But will they be enough to preserve lives and rebuild shattered trust? Many had hoped the beginning of September would mark the arrival of substantial reforms involving the way our society is policed. What Texas lawmakers delivered will be viewed by some as half measures and others as solid bipartisan steps in the right direction. When all was said and done, Texas banned the use of chokeholds by police. Texas has also made non-intervention a criminal offense for officers witnessing other officers using excessive force. And finally, Texas has made it mandatory that police body cams remain activated during the entirety of encounters and investigations. Panel, plenty of reforms left on the side of the legislative road here, including reduction of so-called qualified immunity, which police chiefs testified would lead to a massive exodus of peace officers out of law enforcement. I'm going to start with you, Tamara Bell. Was enough done?
Well, I think this was a really huge step in the right direction. I was glad to see that the chokeholds, that was something that I knew for a lot of police departments, that was already illegal. But the fact that they did reduce some of the changes in the law, I really appreciate it. One of the things that I really am excited about is that you as an officer not supposed to sit your ass there and watch them kill somebody and say nothing. That part, I don't know what they have put in is the punishment if you get caught doing that, because blue usually cover blue ass. But I don't know, what I didn't hear that part. But the fact that they have put that on paper, that it's literally illegal for you to stand there and watch them kill somebody, and I'm really excited about that, that they did do that, and that they took away some of the immunity, which has been a serious battle for citizens when they find out officers have done wrong.
Bob Price, Governor Greg Abbott came to Houston, talked with George Floyd's family, and promised to do something. Did he keep his promise?
Well, I think this is a great first step by the Texas legislature to move a very serious issue forward without going too far and putting public safety at risk. When you look at the liberal actions in some of these other states like Oregon and California, Washington and Minnesota, that have virtually wiped out police departments, and there's nobody there to come to your aid when you get in trouble because they went too far, too fast with these police reforms. The stopping the chokehold, making people wear their body cams full time, making it a crime for an officer to stand by and do nothing when somebody's using excessive force, whether it's deadly force or even physical force. Those are good steps, and it'll be interesting to see those move forward, and it creates the space for additional conversations to happen without getting the blowback on what you've seen in these other liberal states that went too far too fast.
Marcus Davis, I talked about shattered trust. Does what came out of the legislature, can it restore any of it?
I'm very much not interested in first steps if there's no second, third, fourth, final step. We have a habit of taking these baby steps and then celebrating them like we did something. The words of Malcolm X, you can't put a 9-inch knife in my back and take it out 6 inches and tell me everything is okay. It's not okay until the knife is completely out and the wound is sealed and healed. And as long as coward-ass cops still get the protection of qualified immunity, then we have not done our job in protecting citizens. Policing is a corrupt industry in this nation, and America is in denial about that. And until we come to the grips that we have more bad apples than we think we do, we're going to keep taking these first steps and thinking everything's okay. Meanwhile, George Floyds of the world will continue to die, and we'll protect abortions, but we'll let Tamir Rice get killed, and we say, well, we took the first step. Baby steps. 30
seconds for you, Sue Lovell. What's your take on this?
I on the body cameras, the only way that really works is if someone independent is in charge of those cameras on and off, not the officers themselves, because they can just turn them off at some point in time. So body cameras are good, but not when the officers are in control of them, when there's independent controls of those body cameras.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Still ahead, cracking down hard on the buyers who fuel the sex trade. Pay a prostitute in the Lone Star State and you risk a felony conviction. That discussion front and center on the other side of this break.
Advocate against human trafficking, and she talked about how many minors had paid for a crime and they were the victim. So I am very glad to see that there's now equal share of the punishment, because for decades, and I'm talking about going back to the Bible, okay, it has been the women who've been punished and the men just shoot them to deuce. So I'm glad to see that now they'll be shooting the deuce with a felon, okay?
All right, Sue Lovell, this was a problem when you were on city council. Will going after the Johns be an effective strategy, you think?
Hey, look, I'm always for equality, and I think if it's against the law for one participant, it should be against the law for the other. I'm for full equality. If this is going to be a crime and remain a crime, then, hey, I'm for equality on this. I think it was a good thing and one of the few things I agree with the legislature on.
All right, Marcus Davis, we haven't seen this innovation before. Does that make any sense to you? I mean, it takes two to tango.
Yeah, it makes zero sense to me. Zero. Now, let me be clear. Human trafficking is a major issue and is a major issue that should be dealt with. But I'm not going to conflate the two. I'm going to deal with human trafficking, and then I'm going to deal with the business of sex, right? A man and a woman can make an agreement to have consensual sex. A man and a woman can have a consensual agreement to go into business together, but they can't have a consensual agreement to have a business sex relationship, and that is just absolutely absurd. Going after Johns, and I agree with you, Tamara, you shouldn't go after Johns less than you go after the prostitutes. But going after the Johns is the equivalent of going after the corner marijuana dealer or the crack dealer. Human trafficking is the issue. Solve the issue and stop dealing in petty crimes.
All right. Bob Price, you cover human trafficking. I mean, we have a situation here where a lot of those women who are being exploited are afraid for their lives, and they don't get much of the money that they earn. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I've talked to a lot of law enforcement officers about this, and they go in and they're looking for people who are victims of human trafficking, and they're trying to find ways to help them. But the reality is, when these drug cartels smuggle them in from Mexico, when they're being controlled by their handlers, if you will, throughout the other processes, it's not just they're in fear for their own lives, they're in fear for their families' lives back in their homes. All of these women that are being brought across the border, that are being trafficked into the sex industry across the United States, they have family back in Guatemala and Honduras and Mexico and Nicaragua and El Salvador. And these cartels are making them pay off their human smuggling debt through service. It's not just in the sex trade, it's also in the construction industry, in the hospitality industry, where people are treated as indentured servitude. So this is a good step in cutting off the supply.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Still to come, freedom to carry a handgun without a license. Texas joins other states which are expanding Second Amendment rights as the president calls for new control.
Been toting since he was a fisherman and an outdoorsman and just a flat-out gun-toting Texan.
Okay, I'm going to go to someone who knows a little something about Livingston, Texas, or the general area. Anyway, Bob Price, what's your take on permitless carry now in Texas?
Well, it doesn't really change much at all, although I will say this: if you make a decision to carry a firearm and you're not educating yourself on what the law is, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble really fast. So take the training, whether you want to apply for the license or not. But the Constitution guarantees you the right to keep and bear arms. That means you can carry the gun with you. And as long as you're not out for some unlawful purpose, that this law guarantees your constitutional rights. There have been approaching 20 other states that have gone back to granting what was already guaranteed in 1789. Giving you back the right that you had to carry your guns around. And we haven't seen the shootouts in the streets. We haven't seen the confrontations with police officers. Yes, you have to be careful. If you're stopped by a police officer, don't use the gun word. Say, I'm carrying a firearm. They're trained to react to the word gun. So, be sensible, be courteous to the officer, and be considerate of his safety as well as your safety, and everybody will walk away just fine.
Sue Lovell, does this new law worry you?
Yeah, it does. It's but it is what it is, and they have passed a law. I'm not for it, but it's the law. We'll wait and see if really all the things everybody says is it's nothing. It'll be okay. It won't cause a lot of mayhem, not people. I guess we're going to find out. And to me, it seems like a kind of dangerous experiment, but Constitution says you can carry it, and we're gonna see. But yeah, it makes me very, very nervous. And guy, you don't know these days. You can't even honk your horn at somebody that if somebody has a gun, they're going to turn around and shoot you, like that young man, or those sort of things. So we'll see.
All right, Tamara Bell. My theory is that everybody who wants to carry a gun is already carrying one. This really doesn't change the equation much. What's your take on it?
My concern and my take on it is that, for African American males especially, I am concerned, is this going to get them killed? Because, you have a gun, you don't have a permit, you don't have to have one, but, a lot of them don't know, like Bob just said, say firearm, don't say gun. They don't know that. They just say it's a gun. So I am concerned about that and what this might lead to. And like Sue was talking about, the young boy at the Astros, held the mama driving her kids to school in California who got into it with him, and her kid ended up getting killed for something that he didn't even do. So, like Sue said, hell, we'll see. Start counting the bodies.
All right, I wanted to give Jessica Colon the final 30 seconds.
Well, it's a beautiful Sunday when Bob and Marcus are on the same page, first of all. And I just, 20 other states, like Bob said, have put this in. Greg, you mentioned that in your intro, and there hasn't been, significant problems from it. And I believe that that's exactly what we'll see in Texas, and we'll institute our constitutional rights here again.
All right, hold that thought. Just ahead, we continue our discussion of new firearm freedoms, including the designation of Texas as a Second Amendment sanctuary state, and later, the newly enacted ban on homeless encampments. Will criminal penalties improve public safety and cleanliness in Texas cities?
it passed into law. And so he's just going to start signing orders. And the states have an obligation to push back against illegal executive orders. And I think that's what you're seeing in this bill.
Okay, Jessica Colon, put your political strategist hat on. Is this a winning move for Republican office holders in the state of Texas?
Yes, but I think this is a winning move for Texans. I think Texans want to make sure that their constitutional right to bear arms is protected, what we just discussed. And I think this is, you know, every state's different. And this is Texas's choice to be a state that supports its right to keep and bear arms wholly in every capacity. And that's what you're also seeing, you know, here, that the governor is saying, hey, we are very serious about this. We are not going to take any of your executive orders that really are lip service. A lot of times, you know, it's not the lawful folks that have guns that are the problem. It's the folks that acquire guns and use them for bad that are the problem here. And
like
Marcus says, address the issue, and we can get rid of the tragedies that can happen. So we that's, you know, Governor Abbott's taking a very strong stand here on the Biden administration.
All right, Sue Lovell, I know you went to California recently. I think we're crazy over here.
Sometimes, yeah, they do. But, you know, I think saying this to Biden, and I understand, hey, stay out of our business, I sort of equate, it's interesting because you just recently had the governor who was all up in all the school districts' business about what the choice they want to make for their school districts, for their children that go to their schools and their school boards to make those decisions. And they did. And then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, Biden, I don't want you coming in here, but you know what? Hey, school districts, I'm going to trample all over your decision making. I mean, you know, come on, be consistent. If consistently you don't want the federal government in your business, then, hey, consistency says you stay out of local government, local controls business.
Oh, we got to leave it there, although Marcus, I know, wanted to jump in. Okay, up next,
Marcus.
two of the smartest guys in just about any political room offer expert insight on the coming race for Texas governor and the critical process of drawing new electoral boundaries.
new gig within MSNBC is, I think, signaled that he doesn't plan on running. So I think, as Ross mentioned, it's really Beto's race to turn down. I mean, until Beto makes a decision one way or another, I don't think you're going to see anybody else emerge, because if he has right of first refusal. At a certain point, there'll probably be some pressure on him to make a decision so that if he doesn't run, Democrats aren't forced to go to a plan C like they did with Lupe Valdez 4 years ago in 2018, when they went with a pretty weak candidate who was ended up being weaker than they had originally predicted.
Because you're probably the two only guys that, number one, have a grasp of redistricting, and number two, actually enjoy watching the process a little bit. Y'all expect any surprises when they finally get around to drawing new lines? I'll start with you, Ross.
You know, the two big trend lines here are the growth was people of color, 95% people of color. The other thing that I think is really interesting is that the triangle that is formed by Houston on one corner, Austin, San Antonio on another corner, and Dallas, Fort Worth on another corner is increasingly where people in Texas live. And the Republican parts of the state in West Texas, East Texas, and to some extent South Texas are increasingly less population. 190 least populated counties in Texas contain less than 10% of the state's people. The four biggest counties contain 40% of the state's people, and 3 of those counties are blue. So I think redistricting is going to be as interesting in some ways on a geographic level as it is on all of the levels that we normally fight on: party lines, racial lines, ethnic lines.
Mark, what are you keeping your eye on?
Well, I'm really interested in, particularly when we're looking at the U.S. House and the Texas House, how risk-loving or risk-averse Republicans are going to be with their map making. That is, in the Senate, I think it's pretty clear they're going to go to protect 18 seats and leave 13 for Democrats, maybe with one in the middle where they'll take a gamble on. But in the U.S. House and for the 38 seats there and for the 150 Texas House seats, they're going to have to make a decision. Are they going to be content with a pretty rock-solid majority of 80 to 85? Or do they want to really try to stretch it out in the Texas House and get up in the high 80s or 90s, but at the risk that we have a wave election like we had in 2018 that brings it all down? And it'd be the same for the U.S. House. In places like Houston, do they decide to go after Lizzie Fletcher and try to give Wesley Hunt a congressional District 7 where he can win? Or do they say, no, we're going to surrender CD7 to Lizzie Fletcher and we're going to strengthen Troy Nails, Dan Crenshaw, and Michael McCall and make sure that they're rock solid for future elections?
Up next, camping without permission is now against the law in the Lone Star State. Supporters say it's needed to restore safety and sanitation, but critics call it government persecution of the homeless. Also taking effect this week, a statewide ban on homeless encampments, a measure which drew substantial bipartisan support. The legislative action was triggered in part by the escalating number of folks pitching tents in the capital city of Austin, creating what many have described as a public safety and sanitation crisis. Violators of the ban are now subject to a Class C misdemeanor, punishable by a $500 fine. Panel critics of this measure say it criminalizes homelessness without the state providing near enough in the way of resources to attack the underlying problem. Tamar Bell, you advocate for neighborhoods. What's your take on this?
I know that in the Midtown community, they're over there probably having a champagne pop-off because this was one that they really battled for the home encampment that was under 59 and under the Pierce elevator. So, you know, they really had to get TxDOT involved to put up fences and everything to stop it, and it was a problem with them. But when COVID happened, it really became a life concern problem. But I want to say that criminalizing homeless, you can't get blood from a turnip. Okay, so what you gonna do? You say the jail don't have no room. So what are you going to do with them? They do need to address the problem that exists because, I mean, okay, so you're gonna now give them a home in the jail and 3 meals a day. I don't understand it. Okay, what's a Class C misdemeanor? How they gonna get to court? How you gonna serve them? They ain't got no address. Where you sending the tickets to? Come on now.
All right, Marcus, I know where your business is, and you probably have an understanding of this situation.
I do, and part of my understanding resembles the portion that Tamara just expressed. I don't know what, and I get it. I live in Third Ward. My business is in Midtown, and I get the neighborhood frustration behind it. And there needs to be a solution. But taking a short-staffed police department to try and put this into place is not effective. Putting them in an overcrowded jail is not effective. You know, I look at it the same way I look at minimum wage. We have a problem trying to cure people who are at the bottom of the barrel without realizing that we need to raise the damn barrel. We want to pass minimum wage in this nation without asking ourselves, what are we doing as a society that only has a goal of having a certain segment of the population reaching the bare minimum? Similarly, we want to pass laws about people camping out in Texas that makes it illegal without asking ourselves, what have we done in Jericho to make the Jericho road this bad that we're not addressing?
All right, take 20 seconds, Bob. You think this is a good piece of legislation?
I think most of the district attorneys are going to ignore it because they don't have the time or the energy or the space to prosecute these cases. But it's still a huge problem. It's primarily a mental health problem, and states in the left and states on the right, none of them are addressing it from that perspective.
All right, stay with us as we discuss the new ban on homeless encampments and debate the question, does it constitute an infringement on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
so many services are out there right now for folks that are truly homeless and need support.
All right, Sue Lovell, this is one of the most stubborn problems we face as communities. What's your take?
Well, just because you pass a law, which means, oh, I don't see you anymore, doesn't mean it's gone away. It just means I don't have to look at you and see you anymore. There's just been a failure across the board to address this issue. And I think if people want to camp, we should find adequate places where people can go and camp and live in their tents and take care of themselves. Maybe it isn't in your neighborhood, but certainly there's some land we could set aside where they could go and take care of themselves.
Got to leave it there, Sue. If you like today's show, be sure to subscribe to the Fox 26 Houston YouTube channel, where you'll find a What's Your Point playlist with past shows and What's Your Point overtime recordings, where our panel continues the discussion. Thanks for joining us. The conversation continues on a national level next with Fox News Sunday and host Chris Wallace.